So I don't know how many of you actually know this, but Phineas and Ferb is my favorite animated show of all time. I watched it when it premiered back in 2007, and while I didn't watch it all the way up to the finale, because at that point I was getting too old for the Disney Channel, so I had kind of stopped watching this show as it was airing, but even now, I can consider it probably one of the best animated shows ever made, partially because it can also appeal to adults. Some shows that I can also consider in there would be shows like Batman the Animated Series, Avatar The Last Airbender, Troll Hunters, Justice League, Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. It's on the level of those kind of shows that can be enjoyed by both young and old audiences alike, because it's not just a show just to keep your little kid's attention, it actually has good writing to it. And I've never really talked about the Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension movie. I should do a video on that movie at some point. But I consider that to be probably the best Disney Channel original movie. I mean, that doesn't really say much. A lot of those movies don't hold up as an adult. But nevertheless, I would probably put it at the top. And back in the very, very early days of this channel, back in 2020, I reviewed the comeback film, Candace Against the Universe. And while I gave it a very high score, I think I actually ended up giving it an A+. I would probably not give it that high of a score now, because I do have some issues with the movie. But I think I just gave it that score because I was impressed that the comeback was good at all. Because Disney Plus does not exactly have a good reputation for quality. If you guys don't know, that Disney Plus has produced some of my least favorite TV shows and movies of all time. Most notably The Acolyte and Percy Jackson and the Olympians. So I was skeptical when I heard that this show was coming back. This was announced all the way back in, I think, January of 2023. This thing has been in production for a while now. And it was supposed to come out last year, but it got delayed. I don't really know why. But nevertheless, the first 10 episodes are officially on Disney Plus. Well, technically 20, because all of these are two-parters. And when I talk about these episodes, I'll be referring to them as 1A and 1B and 2A and 2B the entire time, except for the Meep episode, because that's the only one that's a true, two-part episode. So, yeah. And I'll get into some other things about the show as well, like there are some changes made in certain aspects of the show, and I'll get to the songs later. I'm not going to talk about them while going through the episodes, because honestly, they deserve their own little segment. And when I do talk about the episodes, I'm going to kind of breeze through them, because they're not really deserving of deep dives, except for maybe one of the episodes that I will go a bit deeper into. So, let's just get into the episode. So, I am going to have to look up these episodes. And I was contemplating whether or not to do this video now. I was actually planning to wait until the entire season was over. But considering we're not getting any more episodes for another month or so, I decided to just review them now. So, we're going to kind of breeze through these episodes pretty quickly, because there are other things about this I want to talk about, and I don't want this video to be half an hour long. So I've got the episode titles pulled up on my phone just so I can remember what episodes were in what order. So yeah, the first episode, Summer Block Party, 1A, is fine. It's a very, very stereotypical Phineas and Ferb episode. There's nothing really special about it, but it's perfectly fine. Though it does end with a neat twist where Doofenshmirtz, instead of making the invention disappear, instead makes the mother disappear. But that becomes really weird in 1B, where it's revealed that Linda was turned into a cloud and they have to find a way to reverse it. It's really freaking weird. Then we get 2A, which is kind of a ripoff of other Phineas and Ferb episodes from earlier in the show, where they take a submarine made of a sandwich to the Mariana Trench for some reason. And at the end of the episode, Candace was supposed to be helping her mother with a sandcastle competition, and they win because a bunch of sand covers the submarine on shore, and they think that's what they built. So they end up winning because of that. Yeah, it's a ripoff. That ending is obviously a ripoff of the Atlantis episode. And then 2B is Candace is trying to get her driver's license, but at the same time, she's trying to follow Phineas and Ferb as they make some little climbing gear that's supposed to be very similar to a gecko. It's a whatever episode. It's better than 2A, but those two episodes are just kind of whatever. And then 3A, this one I don't even remember. Oh yeah, where they make a giant circular ice pathway that they ride around Danville on. Once again, it's just fine. 3B is about a therapist who worked with both Candace and Doofenshmirtz, and he's kind of putting together everything that happens in the show, including the secret agent Platypus. And he's kind of giving a big presentation, but obviously all of his evidence disappears before he can show anybody. This joke has been done, the joke's been done before, where somebody else basically becomes the Candace of the episode, and they end up suffering the same fate she does in every episode. So, it's been done before, but again, totally fine. And then, getting to the songs. The next episode, oh god, 4A, Tropey McTropeface. Yeah, if you haven't seen the show, that's the actual title, I didn't make that up. It's about a giant zoetrope, or zoetrope, I forget how you say it, that the kids build, and this is possibly one of the worst episodes of television I've ever sat through. I don't even want to get into how stupid it is, because, honestly, if I were to describe the episode to you, you would assume I'm on drugs. And the Michael Bublé cameo did not help. I don't have a problem with Michael Bublé, but he just made this all the more weird. I'll get more to that when I get into the songs. But, yeah, this episode was absolute dog shit. This is probably the worst episode of the show ever, and it's probably one of the worst episodes of television I've ever had to sit through. The next one, and 4B, is about the kids making a giant bookcase for their father. It's a perfectly decent episode, and you have Doofenshmirtz has an innator that that creates plants with his face on it, and eventually the kids end up having to fight these things while the plants are destroying the bookcase. This one's a pretty entertaining episode, actually. It has the same formula you usually see, but this one was better than the other one. This was probably the best one so far. And then 5A is, again, just kind of an okay episode. And it really shows how dumb Doofenshmirtz is, where he can't tell that Perry is just the regular platypus that's sitting around. He can only tell him where he has the hat. I know that's the joke, but he has a PhD. How dumb is this guy? And then 5B is about Carl, the intern. And this is kind of interesting, where he goes from part-time job to part-time job while also helping Perry during his missions at the same time. It was an entertaining episode, and I did like the ending. I'm not going to spoil too much with these in case you haven't seen the episodes, but really, that's your own fault if you haven't. But again, I didn't want to really go deep into these episodes, except for the Meep episode. We'll get to that in a second. 6A is where they go on a cruise to see basically what's essentially the Northern Lights. It's a fine episode. They brought back Monty Monogram, and they're like trying to remind us of the relationship he has with Vanessa, which is really weird considering the Flash Forward episode in season 4 confirmed that Vanessa ends up with Ferb, so this feels like a waste of time. And I did like the fact that Doofenshmirtz got arrested here because you're not supposed to bring pets on board, but he got caught with Perry, and so he was like arrested by the security and everything. That was pretty funny. 6B was probably the second worst episode of this by far, where it's about the Fireside Girls getting into a really petty argument about things, and it escalates to the point of insanity, and the song is really bad. We'll get to that later. And this episode was really annoying. But even still, they made it so much worse, where you think the lesson is going to be that you need to compromise on things, and you shouldn't let these kind of petty arguments get this far out of control. But it's revealed at the end of the episode that they're acting this way because their little building was hit by Doofenshmirtz's non-cooperative-inator, or whatever it was called. Does it say what it was called? Yeah, uncooperateinator, which just ruins a good potential lesson that this episode could have taught. They just said, nope, fuck it, throw it out the window. It's just like that Umbara arc on the Clone Wars, where the clones have to decide whether or not they should mutiny against Krell because they don't like how he runs things, only to discover, nope, he's just a Sith wannabe, so there is no moral gray area here. They just have to stop him, and there's no, and the lesson they could have taught just goes out the window. Then the next one, 7A, is the Candace suit, where it's some weird bullshit with like a bunch of suits that look like Candace that Buford made, because he has a bunch of life-size molds of people in the town for some reason. It's never explained. It's really creepy, and it's not funny. And obviously they use it to make sure to see if the thing, to make sure that the thing Phineas and Ferb built doesn't disappear if Linda's wearing a Candace suit. And all they built this time was a giant pogo stick. There was nothing special about it, so this episode was kind of dumb. I did like 7B because I had forgotten in season 4 that Stacy learned about Perry being a secret agent, so she was actually kind of helping him on a mission here, and I did like this. This episode was surprisingly a lot of fun. Episode 8A. I barely remember this, apparently. This was the episode where Isabella, Baljeet, and Buford were building something in the backyard while Phineas and Ferb were out with their mother. This episode's extremely forgettable, and I couldn't have been less interested. Episode 8B is about Baljeet being invited to an audition for a film, and I do like how Phineas and Ferb and everybody help him try to prepare for the audition by basically making a real version of a set that he would work on with a real life, some kind of big worm that they use. And he thought he was auditioning for a character named Xterra, but when the director actually shows up, it's revealed that it was a typo and they were looking for extras, and they don't have him as the part because he showed his acting ability was, I guess, too good to just be an extra on it. It's really stupid and contrived, but this kind of thing has happened in Phineas and Ferb before, and they just give her the set too. Because of course they do, just like they gave away the Football X7 stadium to the British team that was in town. I don't know what they're gonna do with that stadium, but yeah. Then episode 9 was the one that probably pissed me off the most, because this was the third Meep episode, the Meet Me in St. Louis, where basically they had to write an episode around the little clips that they made for the fake trailer in the second Meep episode. And the reason this one pissed me off so much is because they kept calling back to the fact that they're just randomly getting shots in from the trailer, even to the point where they would do like a screenshot thing anytime the shot from the trailer showed up, and all it did was just remind me about the last Meep episode. And the second Meep episode, the Meepless in Seattle, is probably one of my favorite episodes of the show. So the fact that this episode was so stupid and none of the jokes hit, except for one where there's a lot, like, the way they get around the shots from the trailer are incredibly stupid, and the least creative thing they could do with this episode. Except for one where the line that was in the trailer was Phineas saying, "Ferb, aren't those extinct?" And he was pointing at a blimp that was a Doofenshmirtz's blimp that was disguised as a VHS rental or something, and that was the line he went with. That was a pretty clever joke, but it was really the only one that worked in this episode. I absolutely hated this episode. It was, like I said, it was easily the one that pissed me off. And while I did hate the Zoetrope episode more, I thought that was a way worse episode. This one pissed me off way more. The other one just made me cringe. And then finally, there's the Slumber Party episode, which was fine. It was perfectly fine. I thought both the storylines involved with the storyline with Phineas, Ferb, and Baljeet and everything. The jokes were predictable, but they were perfectly fine. And the one with Doofenshmirtz was kind of funny as well. And then with 10B is the Forced Perspective episode. This one was entirely forgettable, and I really don't care. So, yeah, those are all the episodes in order. So, most of them were at least decent. Like, they feel like very safe episodes of the show. There were a couple that stuck out that were pretty good, and then there were some that were just absolutely horrendous. Again, the Zoetrope episode was awful, the Meep episode was awful, and the Fireside Girls episode was also awful. So, there are a few changes not exactly changes from this season. There's one that started with the film, and that's the voice actor of Ferb. It is no longer Thomas Brody Sangster. They have a new guy who sounds just like him, so it's really not that big a deal. Mitchell Musso did not return to play Jeremy in this season. I'm not sure why. I know he was arrested for DUIs back like 10 years ago, but he came back for the movie a few years ago, so why didn't they bring him back for this? The intro has a couple of changes. For some reason, they had Vincent Martello re-record the exact same lines from the original. I have absolutely no idea what the point of that was. So yeah, that's really all the changes there. And then there's the songs. The first one is okay. The Zoetrope song, sung by Michael fucking Bublé of all people, was absolutely horrendous. It was on par with the rest of the episode, just absolutely cringy. And again, the Fireside Girls episode had a song that was really fucking awful. Surprisingly, the Slumber Party episode song was okay. Those are really the only ones I remember, though. And then there's just some overall things about this season that just don't work. There's a running gag involving Buford wanting them to make a giant bread bowl hot tub. No, I'm not making that up. And it already wasn't that funny the first time. It was a cute enough joke the first time, and when they brought it up again in the second episode, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But then they kept doing it every episode, and I was getting really annoyed to a point where I realized this is going to be in every fucking episode, isn't it? And it was. It was in I swear it was in every episode. I can't be sure, but it was at least in every episode that it featured Buford. I think there were a couple of at least half episodes that didn't have Buford, and so those ones obviously didn't bring that up. But every episode he was on screen, they brought up that joke, and I started rolling my eyes every single fucking time they brought it up, and again, it's not like it's the worst joke on the planet or anything, but man, that's the big, huge running joke you wanted to go with for this season? Was a bread bowl hot tub? Seriously? The jokes in general, a lot of them just weren't that funny. They weren't exactly awful. And there are plenty of jokes that do get a laugh, but I remember the original seasons being so funny, especially since my brother just was binge-watching them, the early seasons, before the new one came out, so I was refreshed by a lot of the jokes, and they were pretty funny, and a lot of the inventions were so much more creative than the ones they had in this season. So, is this season awful so far? No, but it is kind of a letdown. Honestly, I think the movie from 2020 was actually better. I'd have to rewatch it. I don't think I've seen it since I saw that initially for the review. But man, was this a downgrade in terms of quality. Even the later seasons of Phineas and Ferb have their duds, but this just felt like it almost felt like this had an entirely new crew, but it didn't. It was still Dan Pavamir and Jeff Marsh. What the hell happened? I don't understand why this was so underwhelming. Again, it's not exactly awful. It's not nearly as bad as The Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, and I know that one's, the second half of that season is out now, and I don't even know if I'm going to watch it. I really could not stand the first half of that season. This one, I will obviously watch the second half of the season, but let's just say I'm not exactly as enthused as I hoped I would be. If I'm going to give this a score now, I'm going to give it a C-. But, yeah, so this was kind of underwhelming. Let me know what you guys thought of this, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.